Hello, welcome to episode 5 of Off the Fields. We're waiting on Paris to join us. This is going to be a really sensitive episode as we're talking about basically black athletes dating outside of their race. I mean, I think that this is something that we need to talk about and really get into it because we see it in college, we see it in the NFL, and it's just something that a lot of people, really talk about behind closed doors, but we really need to talk about it in a, TV show platform like Off the Field. So let's get Paris in here. Let's see. Hi, there is Paris.
Hey.
Okay, so I was just telling everybody that this episode, as you just told me, it can ruffle some feathers, but it's something that we need to talk about, obviously, right? So let's just get right into it. Me and Paris, we're both sports reporters. We're both the Ohio State University alumni, so we know all about sports in a different light, just, outside of what's going on in corporate media today. So let's get right into it, Paris. Basically, why do we think black athletes are continuing to date outside of their race? We've seen like the surge of celebrating black love. You know what I'm saying? We see that a lot more today. But when it comes to collegiate athletes, right? A lot of athletes who attend PWIs versus HBCUs, there's a difference, right? The foreign women we're talking about, it's not just white women, right? It could be Latinas. It could be, Indian women. It could be Caribbean women. It doesn't have to be a white woman we're necessarily referring to. But we just want to know, why are athletes dating outside of their race? I mean, we know that some are being told to do that. They're being groomed to do that. And we know that some come with Eurocentric views. So it's kind of something that's been embedded in them. What is your take on it when it comes to black athletes dating outside of their race?
I don't know. Well, first and foremost, I don't want anyone thinking that I believe that people can't date outside their races. You know what I'm saying? It's 100% not my responsibility to tell who is allowed to date who. And also, too, it's important to note that some people do meet before they become pros. So, some interracial relationships, they didn't become an interracial relationship, when they were at their highest point on the mountaintop. But some people, have met their spouses, while they were still down in the valleys, going beyond that stereotypical, top profile athletes, dating outside their race. But talking about that, sometimes it could be for an image thing. As as a black woman, there has been some unsweet things spoken about our black women in terms of how they are. You have the negative connotations, the angry black woman. Black women always seen as aggressive. So in some ways, a lot of, speaking about black men, they have kind of shied from being with black women for that reason, which is absolutely absurd. But it's just, I don't know. I guess it depends, what angle you're kind of targeting this topic, because we do know that some athletes do date outside their race purposely, for reasons like image. I'm not going to deny that. We know that's real. And then you do have those who date outside the race because of a genuine connection, which has nothing to do with, an image that they would like to upkeep, but, just simply, who they genuinely fall in love with.
Yes. So there's always that saying that, okay, love has no color. When you bring in the religion aspect of it, God teaches us to love all, no matter the race and things of that nature. So a lot of people stand on that. That's something that they believe in, but then we do see a lot of times, basically what's attached to a black woman from a Black man are certain things that are deemed stereotypical things, like, oh, being loud, being aggressive, being strong-minded. And a lot of that can be intimidating to, let's say, you know, an athlete who's on his way up. He may not be a high-profile athlete yet, but he's on his way. Some of that comes off as being intimidating. That's what everybody used to say, right? But now Black women are so much more celebrated, right? We're in all these like way more powerful positions, all of this education that we're gaining. There's just a lot more to it now. And I think that, you know, when it comes to the stereotypes or stigmas attached to, oh, dating a white woman, like white is right, or, you know, basically she's going to help your image. She's going to make you look better. It's going to clean up your image. You know, what is this image? What are we comparing it to? And it just goes to show you that some of that, I think, is a system. It's embedded in the system of football.
Absolutely. You know, it's you know, I don't want to, you know, offend anyone. So I'm really trying to, because, you know, to be honest, some Black men, and I don't know why they have this mentality, but they do have the mentality that when they do date outside their race, that they finally made it, you know?
Yeah.
And when I say that, I think that some Black men think that, and I'm just going to be straight up from the gate up, some Black men think that when they do date outside their race, like when a Black man does date a white woman, he feels that now, in a way, his money is as equivalent to a white man, but in reality, it's not. And so you have a lot of Black men. Yeah, you have a lot of Black men who date outside their races, and now that they're with someone other than a Black woman, they feel like, you know, they're on a higher pedestal, or they can be in some ways equal to a white man, which in reality you still will never be.
Right.
You know, and I'm you know, I'm a Black man myself, so, you know, I don't mean to say this in a disrespectful way, but it's true.
Right.
You know, but it's true. Black people, we live in a white world, and no matter what we say or do, society still won't value us like they do, you know, our white counterparts or our European-centric counterparts. No, it is what it is. But you know, and even, and I hate to say this, but I mean, it's really become a fad. Or I remember memes. There were memes during the NBA draft and the NFL draft where you had the Black dad, the white mom, and then the draft pick.
Yeah.
The Black dad, the white mom, and the draft pick. And I remember literally, and I think it was the NBA, someone had made like a meme, and literally it was like 4 draft picks back to back to back to back were in the same scenario, the Black dad and the white mom. And of course, you know, there's nothing wrong with interracial relationship. You know, that's not the viewpoint we're coming from. But when you do see that, you know, what does that image kind of represent? Or more so, what do you think it does for people in society when they don't see the opposite image? You know, when they don't see 2 Black people together. It's, you know, it's I don't know. It's a touchy topic. It is. Because unfortunately, it's a lot of, you know, systemic racism embedded into it.
It is
much more deeper than what people want to admit to.
Yeah, so like, and I think that within the Black community, right, as a Black woman, I think that there's still moments where when you find out that a certain athlete has decided to marry a white woman, I mean, we see it all the time in the comments section, you know, like, why? You know, don't date a white girl. You know what I'm saying? Oh, they can mess up your career. As soon as something bad goes wrong, everything's gonna go wrong for you. You know what I'm saying? The thing is that I think that it's very still embedded within the Black community that the reaction is not just from Black women, it's also from Black men as well. Like, okay, why did you choose to be with a white woman? Well, okay, I may get it. Like you said, it's a fashion, it's a fad or a trend to date a Latino woman or a mixed girl. I mean, a mixed girl is still considered Black, but you know, there are some mixed women who are more in touch with or embrace their white side more, right? They may not be as like understanding of their Black culture, right? They may have not taken the time to really get in touch with that or in tune with that. So they just go with something that they're way more comfortable with or familiar with, which may be their white part, which is, there's nothing wrong with that. But, you know, when people saw like Patrick Mahomes, like, okay, it was a white girl, a lot of people were like, oh, well, we're not surprised. You know, he's not as Black. And I think that just goes back to what we did the few weeks before, like, you know, about embracing your Blackness. I think that a lot of people in the Black community still, you know, hope and wish that their sons or their nephews, you know what I'm saying, find a beautiful Black woman and marry her and have kids with her. But then because of the society that we live in now and how things have just really changed, you know what I'm saying? It's more about no matter who the person is, no matter the color of their skin, love is love. And you can't help who you fall in love with. There's nothing wrong with that. But does this apply to not just a Black athlete dating a white woman, but what about uh, um, a gay Black athlete, right, dating a white woman, or a gay Black athlete, a gay Black football player dating a white guy? You know, does the same reaction still lie in there? Do you think even it doesn't have to be just a heterosexual relationship?
I think it does because in general, you know, it's not it's not the it's the principle is more so race.
Yeah.
I don't think it's more so like with gender. I think the principality still stands, as in sometimes Black people feel that when they do date outside their race, that they're you know, they're in some ways now seen a little indifferently.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say better than, but you know, you know, I mean, it is what it is. You know, it's like, I hate to say it, but you know, white people are treated much better than Black people and people of color. And so, in many ways, when you do have that white person around,
Yeah.
you know, you're not looked at as so much as like the bad guy, quote unquote.
Yeah.
You know, because by you being with someone who is white, you know, it at least means in some ways that you're different. You know, you're acceptable. You know, you're one of a kind. You know, or different of your breed, as I've heard them once say. So. I don't think it has anything to do with gender, but I think more so it's just the principle of, you know, dating outside your race. I think
Right.
a lot of people always just have that genuine question, as in, you know, why, you know. And I know, you know, people say love is love, and you fall in love, you know, who you fall in love with. You know, that's completely fine. But I think what's so interesting is that when you do date outside your race, someone is going to be short of their culture.
Yeah.
And I say that because in reality, you know, when you do date outside your race, you're coming together and you're bringing two cultures together. But in some ways, someone's culture is gonna lack in the relationship more than the other.
Yeah.
And in many ways, it's the Black culture that goes lacking in the relationship than the white culture. And I mean, it's the little things that I'm talking about. You know, it's like, I don't think people even realize that when Black people do get into interracial relationships, that, you know, they in some ways allow their selves and their culture to die away, and they do it in a way of compromising, you know, for the person that they're with. But in reality, it's more detrimental than anything, because you're losing more of your identity as you go along, and not saying that every interracial relationship is like this, but it's very rare for, you know, white people to be the ones to compromise, you know, their white culture, you know, for Black people and people of color. So it's, you know, it's.
I know, right?
Exactly.
It
makes you sigh.
You have some of the white women who do embrace the Black culture, right? They love our culture. They're for the culture, okay? They do not everything, but some things that are deemed a part of our culture, they embrace it so much that they want to identify with it. So they start to wear their hair like we do in our culture. They start to dress like we do in our culture.
And you know, I will say though, and I know you're gonna agree with this, a lot of white women though do that for a fad because they embrace our culture when it's cool and cute, and then they let it drift away when it's not. And we've seen that time and time again when it also comes to our men. They love our men, but you know, when it comes to having a family and actually, you know, building with one, very few stay with our men. And in the same way they do our culture.
A lot of it, I've heard a lot of people say, like, well, this one doesn't have to do with race, but a lot of women, you know, I don't think when we were at Ohio State, it was more about securing the bag. But now that is like, if you're an athlete, you kind of have a target on your back with some women, right? Because
you know,
a lot of women are out to secure the bag regardless of race, right?
Pause. Because the tip of my journey at Ohio State, I think a lot of young girls were kind of getting into that era of securing the bag.
Okay.
Now, I got to make that clear because we are of the same generation, but we also attend Ohio State two different eras. So I got to say, when towards the end of my journey at the Ohio State University, I think there was a sense of securing the bag when it came to women and professional athletes. Not all succeeded. Some, in some ways, did learn how to secure that bag. And I can't deny that. I can't.
Yeah.
But
so there's that, and then it's like, oh, okay, I want a mixed baby, right? There's also that. You can't tell me that that's not a thing, because it is. It seems that way, and it's hard to not look the other way, or it's hard to not say that, because that's what it comes off as, right? A lot of Latina women, they do take pride in, you know, securing a black man, a black athlete at that. I think there's a sense of pride that comes with that. And that's why I think it's like kind of, you know, regardless of where you go to school, but like say if you're at a PWI, a lot of white girls are probably going to throw themselves at you, not just because you're an athlete, but some have other ulterior motives. And it's just like athletes need to be more careful, and they need to be more woke about things like that. Take the time to really understand who you are as an athlete. What do you want out of your football career, out of your journey? The women, all of that, yes, that kind of comes with the territory, but at the same time, dating outside of your race, when you cross that bridge, it may be problematic for you. You're going to hear it from the black community, and then when it is addressed, a lot of the times it's been like, of course they're protective of their wives, right? But then as soon as, somebody says something about, oh, why did you marry a white woman, right? Then it becomes about protecting her, right? Oh, well, I'm not going to listen. The real reason why I'm not with a black woman, I know that one football player actually called black women bulldogs, right?
Who
like,
said
I'm
that?
not with that. Yeah. I'll get back to that. But he actually, he referenced black women bulldogs, and he had to go back and do an apology for that. You know what I'm saying? But
he's still playing in the NFL?
Let me double check. I believe he is.
Okay. Yeah, double check on that. But it's interesting because I think that NBA, I mean,
I know.
One, it's 2023, and two, we're getting to the age where you do know, you do know what you're getting yourself into when you're on a college campus. You know that when you do have a certain platform and you're put on a certain pedestal, that there is going to be, an audience that is going to fangirl over you. But again, you're old enough to know better in a sense of not getting yourself in a situation that you may not want in the long run.
Right.
But speaking about a PWI and an HBCU, I
Mm-hmm.
think that also plays a big part as well because, HBCU is predominantly Black.
Yeah.
But at the same time, at public white institutions, there are a lot of, they're white institutions, and many of us Black athletes are just Black faces in a white space. Um, so, and it's so ironic because my girlfriend Nomi just joined the chat, and she sent me a video that was so powerful about last week. But it was a video because we talked about how a lot of white women would jump on Black culture when it's cool,
Right.
and then they will drift away. But what was so funny, someone used Kim Kardashian as an example, and so we all know that Kim Kardashian is, she's like the Michelle Obama for white people. She's just like, but we know the procedures and the surgeries that she had, to emulate Black women.
Mm-hmm.
But what is so ironic was that, when she got rid of her Black man, and though she still has the Black children, she kind of drifted back to her right self. And I say that with the respect of, she got rid of that, the Black woman look, the big curves and the big booty that we naturally have. She got rid of it in a way to assimilate more to her whiteness, and white money.
Right.
And so again, it's so interesting because white women, they do, try to emulate Black women, Black culture, for the fad of it, but then they walk away.
Mm-hmm.
And even like Travis Kelce, like when he was in all those Black women, you saw the image that he put on, you saw the way he looked, and then now that he's with Taylor Swift, he looks like something I won't say because I'm on live.
Yeah. Yeah, Travis Kelce, I think the previous girlfriend was like, her name was Brittany something. And yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying, is it like, I think it goes for women too, though, like a Black woman, say if she decides to date a white guy, there's still that stereotype attached to that, right? Oh, she's with him because he's going to help her with her credit. It used to be stuff like that.
You know what though? That's what I think I defer. Because I feel like when white women do date outside their race, they don't do it in a way that Black men would do. So what I mean when I say that is that Black men would date outside their race in order to make themselves feel better. Whereas I feel like, bless you, I feel like when Black women date outside their race, they don't do it in a sense of like trying to be a white woman.
Right.
Because I think Black women know that, one, there will never be white women, but I think that men and women are different in general. We live in a society where, it's very men on the forefront, men being the head of the household. So I say that with the respect of just women in general, whether you're white, Hispanic, Black, you're always made to be a little bit more submissive, to your partner as women, whereas men aren't. But what separates men is race, Again, a Black man, I don't care what say, would never be looked at or put on the same pedestal as white men, not in this country.
Right.
And so, as a whole, even using like the dollar for an example, they always say like, women make this much less than a male dollar. But then when you separate the male dollar by race, now Black men are trailing this much by the white man dollar.
Right.
And so, I use that, to kind of explain how when Black men, again, date outside the race, they do it in a way to build themselves up, in the way that when white women date outside the race, I don't think I personally don't think that they do it with the intention of trying to be better or try to stir away from that Black woman stigma.
Right. They just want to taste the chocolate. they just like chocolate, and I'm not saying it's a fetish or anything, but it's just looked like I feel like when a white woman is with a Black man, it's like, okay, so she wants some flavor. You know what I'm saying? That's what she's attracted to, and she can't help it, and she don't care what nobody else thinks. And I think that goes along with it was actually an NBA player who made the
Oh,
comment
okay.
about, yeah, Patrick Patterson. He used to play for the Clippers, which he, like I said, he went back and made an apology. But like, come on now,
He still plays. He
huh?
still plays.
I
The
I
Clippers,
think that,
they suck.
yeah, I think that, when Black women hear an apology from a Black man in regards to a comment he made about Black women in a way that's like demeaning or explaining why he chose to marry a white woman, Black women really don't want to hear it. You know what I'm saying? Because it's like, it's deeper than that. Like some Black men, they don't want to date or marry a woman who not looked like actually, identical twins, but had ways or similarities like their mother or their sister or their aunt, or, it's like, that's too much. I only want to enjoy that when I'm with my family. You know what I'm saying? But when it comes to who I have on my arm, oh, like, I'm gonna be looked at as this way if it's a white woman or if it's a bad Latina woman. Like, it's just, unfortunately, athletes are going to have to start changing the way that they're thinking. I understand they can date who they want to date. That's fine. But it's just that we've had a history of the explanation being something that was demeaning or talking down on Black women and not really embracing a Black woman for who she is. I think now we're seeing a little bit more of that. Like you were saying, like at a PWI. Okay. At a PWI, you're surrounded by majority of,
Yeah.
white students. So maybe what you're around, that's what you become attracted to, right? That's especially if you're away at school on a scholarship or something like that, and where you were from, you're used to, it's more predominantly Black, but at a PWI, you're around all these white girls. It's new, you know, like maybe it's just something that you grew into. And then I think that some coaches and I think that other football players who like, milk in their coffee, I think that there's some encouragement there for
Interesting.
younger athletes.
Interesting.
Like, yeah, bro, get you a white girl. Or, yeah, bro, date a Latino girl. I think that's encouraged in the locker room talk. What do you think?
I think it could be encouraged. I mean, I've definitely heard talk like that,
Yeah.
and I think most people have.
Mm-hmm.
Even people that aren't in the sports world, I think they could agree that they've heard conversations um, similar to what you just mentioned.
Yeah.
So um, again, it's interesting because when you do compare dating at a public right institution versus dating at an HBCU,
Mm-hmm.
I say HBCU has more Black
Yeah.
people compared to that PWI. So you are surrounded by more white women, white men, um, and at least with my experience being at Ohio State and being a student athlete, majority of the Black people that I did come across were athletes.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't as common to, you know, be in the classroom and have Black students in my class that weren't other athletes.
Right.
Um, so by, it is, in some ways, just what you're immersed in. And when you are at a publicly white institution,
Mm-hmm.
you are immersed around whiteness. So it
Mm-hmm.
is interesting that, some of these athletes do kind of, you know, in some
Yeah.
ways just get what they can choose. And we all know that college is an age and a time period where, people do meet, their
Mm-hmm.
spouses.
Yeah.
Um, so, it's an interesting dynamic. I mean,
Yeah.
I've never been to HBCU, so
Right.
I wonder how dating would be there. Though I'm sure it's probably, you know,
Right. But we
right.
don't really see that many white
No.
students enrolled at HBCUs. You know
Well,
what I'm
also
saying?
too, you don't see a lot of HBCUs going and playing professional sports because if a lot of HBCU athletes were infiltrated in like the NFL, the NBA, and other professional sports, you probably would see a little bit more difference in terms of that black male athlete, being with a white or lighter woman.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure it would be different,
Yeah.
if there were more HBCU athletes drafted in professional leagues. But I
Right.
think definitely attending a PWI versus the HBCU definitely does play a big role.
Yeah,
on
because
the
like
interracial relationships.
we've seen like the shift with HBCU football, right? Now we're seeing them receive more support. They're receiving the funding and things to be a part of these programs like the NFL and to have these ties to major sports organizations like the WNBA or the NBA, NFLPA. There's different branches, a part of the NFL. So we're seeing a lot more connections with HBCUs, but we know that at a HBCU, a Black love is really celebrated and it's really embraced and encouraged in a different way than it is at a PWI. I mean, come on. I mean, at Ohio State, literally I went down a list of looking for organizations that were more like I could relate to them. There was some culture there, some Blackness there, and there were a lot of organizations, I feel like when you're at a PWI, sometimes you feel like we've talked about this before, that you kind of feel like you have to assimilate or turn down your Blackness just a little bit so it's not too much and they don't deem you as this or that. But that doesn't happen at a PWI. You don't need to turn down your Blackness. You can be yourself and still be, serious about your books and your education and finishing college. You know what I'm saying? But it's just different. It's a different experience at a PWI compared to a HBCU. And when it comes to Black love, even when it comes to like homecoming, the picture is painted different. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like at Ohio State for, the past a few years when I was there, it wasn't like the homecoming king and queen, was always, white people. No, of course it was diverse. It's a diverse school, but it's still predominantly white. So I just think that, when it comes to dating outside of your race, whether you're at a HBCU, I think that what's going to be encouraged there more is Black love. And you're going to be more prone to possibly want to date a Black woman, but you may not as well. It just depends on your experience, right? Some guys do go through that experience as athletes where, they feel like a Black woman doesn't understand what he's going through. She's not understanding. Instead, she's being a distraction or she's causing drama, trouble, when he's trying to get his football career going. Some Black men do experience that in college and then they end up choosing the other race, and then it's like, oh, well, why did you choose to marry this girl? So it does depend on where you're at in school, I think. At a PWI, not saying all the Black athletes married white girls, but it's definitely just something that you see a lot. We saw that a lot at Ohio State. And when I came from Florida, I was like, oh, wow, like I hadn't seen it that much, but when I saw it there, I'm like, why are all the football players dating white girls? Why aren't any of them really dating Black girls? Maybe a few here and there, but what's really going on? Are they just like telling them, hey, get you a white girl because it's going to make your image look better? Like, so what do you think as far as like at a HBCU? I think the football players are going to be more likely to date a Black woman or a minority.
Well, I mean, definitely at an HBCU, you're more prone to dating Black people because it's like 90% Black people. So that's the majority of the pool.
Right.
And then on the flip side, it's literally the very opposite at a public white institution.
Mm-hmm.
You are going to say, you're gonna have more options on the white side, or side that isn't minority, because there is not a lot of options there. There aren't, if I'm being honest. And although things might be more diverse now, they're still not as diverse as they should be. or enough to really change the stereotype and the stigma that has literally plagued the sports world for years.
Right.
Literally for years. I mean, the same, image and tone and words and phrases that I grew up on are still being, spoken about today. When it does come to dating and relationships.
And I think that, when they reach a certain level in their football journey, I think that it comes down to just wanting to, date different kinds of women. Sometimes it's not like a deep embedded race thing, as, what we're also talking about, but it is just, I want to, you're at an ice cream store, you want to try all these different flavors. So I think that's also on the table too, when it comes to, athletes, when they reach a certain level in their career. Maybe they've, when they were younger or whatnot, that's all they dated was Black women. But now that they're at this level, they want to try something different. You know what I'm saying? And they can do that and still be embracing their Blackness. We don't know. But I just know that in the Black community, there is still that response that, okay, why are you dating this white woman? Why did you choose to marry a white woman instead of a Black girl?
Well, this pretty girl said, I'll date them. Yes, Coco. We know you will. We know you will.
Yeah.
Listen, girl, we will get you a nice wide big back linebacker. Girl, we got you, girl.
Right? But like you were telling me about, like, when Byron Perkins, when he ended up dating a white dude, right? And you said, I couldn't believe the impact it had, like the reaction. You said that like thousands of people unfollowed him, right?
Yeah, they did. They did. Amen.
Can you elaborate for people who don't know, because they should.
To make a long story short, Byron Perkins, I guess he's the first HBCU football player to come out as being gay. People eventually found out who he was dating, who just so happened to be a white man. You can go see what that white man looks like. I'm not throwing any shade or anything, but to many, this white man wasn't up to the standard. And so, to make a long story short, people felt that this was a prime example of how Black people will put other Black people on such a high standard when it comes to dating, but when it comes to dating outside their race, they would just allow, I don't want to say anything, but the standards aren't as high. And people started to use Perkins' relationship as that example. I don't know Byron, never, I didn't even know him up until about last week. So, if he happens to come across this, I support, whatever decision you make. Generally speaking, I do, because I, as a former college athlete myself, I do know how hard, it can be, when there are a lot of critics and people, who has a lot of things to say, as you're going through this journey. But, again, people were not, just look it up on Twitter. People were not having it. And some people's reasoning in some ways were justifiable, because again, as Black people in this white world that we're living in, we know the struggles that we have when it comes to dating, and we know how we can be towards each other. Again, Black men will put Black women on such a high pedestal. It's like she nearly has to be perfect, in order for her to get a chance. But you do look at somebody's white woman or somebody's Hispanic woman or Asian woman or Asian woman. You look at them, and you kind of see how the same Black men who wouldn't give these Black women the chance or time of day because they weren't a 10. Well, they gave these 4s all the chances in the world.
Right.
And that was one of the biggest concerns I don't want to say concerns, but that was a big talking point for a lot of people when it came to Byron Perkins and the whole interracial dating.
Yeah, so it's not just like, a black guy dating a white woman. It could be a Black guy dating a white guy, so it's just, a sensitive topic as well still, because people do react in such a strong way, and it could be offensive to the athlete in general because they feel like you're not respecting their decision. And and that, you know, that was their decision as far as who they chose to marry, right? And it should have nothing to do with societal norms, which is what, okay, you're black, and so we say you have to date a black woman, you have to marry a white woman, because you're one, you made it, right? You're not locked up, you're not dead, you know, you didn't experience police brutality or a wrongful conviction, right? So you've made it to the NFL, right? You've put yourself financially in a different bracket than where you started, okay? And you may be able to now take care of your family, right? And then the fact that, you know, your upbringing was different than the way you're going to live now, right?
Yeah.
So all of those factors, I think sometimes the upbringing does play a role in who they decide to marry, in a way, in a sense. Some people's upbringing is, you know, traumatizing, and some of it was, you know, like Michael Orr, you know, him, where he was adopted and his parents basically, you know, conservatorship, like they were in charge of everything when it came to his finances, and that just got removed. But they made bank off of that movie with Sandra Bullock, you know, The Blind Side. They made bank off of that. And not saying that he chose to marry a white woman, but he may just be more inclined to do that because of his upbringing and experience that he had with that family. You know what I'm saying?
Interesting.
Yeah.
But
So
you know what? It's so interesting you say that, because then you also look at Colin Kaepernick and you see the example that he has. You know, he grew up with the white family, but yet, you know, he's with a black woman. So it's interesting with his dynamics. And not saying that, you know, him being adopted by a white family made him date black women. But it is interesting that, again, he was, you know, raised by white people. And, you know, many people saw that documentary. You know, I even remember the part when he had wanted to take a young black girl to prom, and in that documentary, which, you know, he produced, the parents, you know, were a little unsettled with that. So, you know, I'm not saying that, you know, how he was raised persuaded, you know, who he dated, but it is interesting to know that he was raised by a white family, but yet and still, you know, he's with a black woman. He's very pro-black himself.
Very started a whole movement.
And I'm here for it. And I am here for it.
So, you know, that just really goes to show people that you could be raised by a white family, but at the end of the day, you're going to choose to marry who you want to choose, who you decided to fall in love with. You know what I'm saying? And yes, he chose, you know, another person who's a minority. You know what I'm saying? He did not choose a white woman, maybe like some of his teammates, you know? And we don't know some of the reasoning behind why athletes continue to date outside of their race, but there's always been that. I don't know if this is really a myth, though. I mean, I'm just going to call it a myth. Like, white women or women who are not black are more understanding, more passive. You know, they will allow this man to get away with more than a black woman would. You know what I'm saying? There's that as well. And in reality, I think that some people don't want to accept that, but that is part of it a little bit. And I'm not saying that as just a black woman, but there is something that is different, you know, about being with a white woman, to the point where black men continue to pick non-black women. You know, they continue to date out of their race. It's glorified, you know what I'm saying, and it's encouraged, you know, but it doesn't always turn out to be what we think looking on the outside in. It's just that I think as in the black community, I think that, you know, once you've made it, you know, that's what we say, right? You've made it, right? We just expect you to, you know, just, I guess, for your own safety, you understand, like, stick with your own kind, just because it turns into politics at some point. You know what I'm saying? Especially when the money keeps increasing, you know, the income keeps flowing, you know, and I just think that, God forbid, something happens where it's like abuse or something like that, or, drinking. I just think that as a Black man, say if you're married to a white woman and that happens and you're a professional football player, things are going to get really ugly for you.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And you may start receiving death threats from just sports fans.
Yeah. Just
because you are a Black man and you're married to a white woman, and that's an all-American girl, and then you do something like that, and then, they're going to come for you. And it's unfortunate it's that way, but that's why the Black community always responds, and it's like, that's why you should have just dated a white woman, married a white woman, or stayed with a Black woman, married a Black woman. Stick with your own kind, but I think money changes things too, because some people think if you're with a white woman, then you'll be more accepted in that room. You know what I'm saying? You'll be invited to places that you normally wouldn't be invited to.
Right. And again, like I said, a lot of people believe that when you do date, in this case, a lot of Black men and sometimes women believe that, again, when you do date outside your race, that your Black money now turns into white money.
Yeah.
But that's not the case. Your white spouse might have white money. But the money in your bank account is always going to be Black money.
Right.
And that's one of the biggest misconceptions that a lot of people in interracial relationships who do date outside their race for that reason have.
Because, I know that I can bring up this next person's name. It has nothing to do with sports, but it's just an example of you being with somebody, dating somebody, and this person is also a part of the culture. She's embracing the Black culture. She's, in a way, she's a minority. She's not just white. So, for example, Erica Mena and Safari, right? When they were dating, actually, they were married, right? They have kids together. But then something happened where she made racial slurs, right, towards a Black woman. Not just a regular Black woman, a dance hall queen, a Jamaican woman, right? Which is
Yes. Someone just recently told me about that.
Yeah, so the fact that she made a racial slur, right? This is somebody who you've been around and for years, right? You've developed a relationship, a friendship, and trust, right? And there's loyalty there. And then for somebody to say a racial slur, that could be that same woman that you married that's not Black, right? She could say something along those lines. And not saying she will, but when she does, or when she finally does snap, or if she decides to do that, how would you feel as a Black athlete if your partner, who was white, who you decided to marry, or just a foreigner, somebody who's not Black, you decide to marry them, and you guys get into an argument, right? Or you guys get into a custody battle or anything like that, and she starts making racial slurs, what are you going to think? You're going to think...
I want to know, because that wouldn't be me. Girl, I wouldn't put myself in that situation, so I wouldn't even know, because but it's so interesting that you said, because literally a couple of days ago, a friend of mine asked me about that situation, because I guess Erica Mena was she's Hispanic, but she's a Black Hispanic, so she can say that word, which I won't get into. But Erica Mena, you can't say that word.
Yeah, no.
Okay, I'm letting you know you can't say it. So I hope you see this, and if you don't, I'll screen record this small message and I'll personally DM it to you. But no, you can't say that word. But it's interesting because it also brought up that topic of, there are Black Hispanics, or some guys will date outside the race, or date someone who looks so far outside the race, like an Erica Mena, and then say at the end of the day, oh, she's still Black, which we know, we know how that goes.
Right.
We know how that goes.
But as far as there's a lot of colorism too, still, when it comes to dating as well. You know what I'm saying? A light-skinned woman versus a dark-skinned woman, oh no, I mean, she's beautiful, but she's not my type, okay. And then we actually see your type, right? So your type just ends up being either a mixed girl, or it's possibly just a light-skinned girl, somebody who's fair-skinned, but there's nothing wrong with that. But then you still have some athletes who feel like too dark. Oh, that person's too dark. Unfortunately, some still think that way. But I think things are changing. I think that Black love has been so, it's been the epitome, I would say, like even during this pandemic, like there's just been a level of acceptance of Black love and to understand that we need to stick together. There's already this unity that we have because of everything that the Black community has been going through. Mm-hmm. But Black love is just more encouraged now, to date your own. And I think we're going to start to see that with some of the younger athletes that are out there. But at the same time, we may not. We may see like that big shift. Like, what are you thinking? But you're 19 or you're 20. What do you know if you really want, what you really like? You don't really. So
I tell you,
it comes with the territory.
That Angel Cameron Fletcher, them kids. Hello.
So what
Girl,
happened with that?
They got each other tattoos on it, and this is so like such a side note, but they got each other's names tattooed on each other.
Really?
Yes, girl, they posted it. Yeah, I had to do a feature about it. Sure is. Oh my
gosh. I mean, the tattoos, I guess they can.
Girl. They ain't there for the long haul, LOL. We'll check back in 10 years.
Yeah, exactly. And see what that tattoo looks like. But I mean, it's something that can be easily, removed, I guess. But it's worth enduring the pain.
It's Black love, and listen, they go up for them.
Yeah.
The people go up for them.
They do.
I mean, they go up, but I love it though. It's cute. Mm-hmm. It's beautiful, and it's a good example of Black love. And what I love about it so much is that it resembles the movie Love and Basketball. Love and Basketball is a big movie in the Black community, and here you have a real life Love and Basketball. So it is creating a special moment for Black love in the sports world, and it's beautiful. Yeah.
Now, I do want to touch on this, right? We work in the media and stuff, so like when I saw that Malika Andrews, the guy that she decided.
Oh my gosh, the white man.
Yeah. Yes.
And it's so interesting because when I saw that too, a lot of people. Okay, go ahead. Go say what you got to say, and then I'll say.
So, I'm all for women in sports, especially women of color. So I've been team Malika since she started, but I did not know that it was to a certain extent that a lot of people do not like her in the Black community because of the way that she talks about Black men on camera. And that's, difficult sometimes because, she does not have the last say of what she's going to talk about on air, right? I know that as a producer, the anchors don't necessarily have the last say. It's a producer or somebody behind the scenes. Executive producer, they have the last say of what should be said on air. So I know that she says things about Black men that have been offensive to those in the community, but you do have to keep in mind that somebody else is pulling the strings behind the scenes. But she does have a platform, okay? So even though you may say something on air, right, you can still go back and say your piece on your own platform.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? There's a way to still circle back around and, not talk about, say whatever she had said. I know it was something about athlete who had passed away and she was bringing up something that was like negative. It wasn't something like positive to remember him as. And so people were like, why would you do that? That was the same thing Gayle King did when Kobe died. Like she had brought up something with, I think not Cheryl Swoops, but Leslie.
She did.
Yeah. And Snoop Dogg got on her about that, right? Like, why would you ask that question, right? But I don't think Gayle really, she could have, in her position, she could have come up with that question, but at the same time, it could have been somebody in production, a producer.
It could have been. And this is this is also where I believe that it's important for you to take a stand on what you believe in, because
Yeah.
I have definitely worked. I mean, I work in sports media now, and there are definitely some stories. There might have been one or two stories that I did have to work on that I didn't, but I always made sure that I put my best foot forward and um, not being malicious. I
Mm-hmm.
I never want anything I produce or work come from a malicious heart or malicious intent.
Right.
And it's, because I do understand that, especially as a reporter, as an anchor, you don't have the final say in what you always, produce.
You don't.
I get that. I understand that. But at the same time, there is also a way to deliver things,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
in a way to which your message isn't so one-sided, or your message still stays clear.
Right.
Um, because there, like, Malika she said some things that were just, that producers ain't right. Some
Right.
things she said on air, she said producers ain't right. That came from her mouth. And it's so interesting because I did see that, she just recently got engaged to that white man. And when I saw it again, the people were ripping her. And they were ripping her because, she had a track record. This woman had an Olympic track record for talking negatively about Black men. Um, and these are just things that I've seen, just on social media. And so then, she comes out and, she's engaged to this white man. And so all that we know, her beliefs aren't being triggered or encouraged by, other people like her fiance, which we hope. It still makes people unsettled because here you are talking so negatively about Black men,
Mm-hmm.
and come to find out, you're with a white man. So many people now suspect, is a lot of your perspective coming from outside noises rather than your own self.
Mm-hmm.
And I do understand people that might have been frustrated when her whole engagement announcement came out. Congratulations to you, sis. I hope
Mm-hmm.
you and your white man, have a beautiful relationship. Um, but again, it bothered people, and I understand, the angle at which it did.
Mm-hmm. And it goes back to what we said a couple weeks ago about how it is in corporate media, and how certain people are placed in certain positions for a certain look, a certain face, and when that person is in that position and then they say certain things, they know that that's going to be controversial, right? They know that it's going to press buttons because it's coming out of her mouth and she's a Black woman. They know that's going to be offensive to the Black community. They know that people from the Black community are going to say things about that. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, we don't know her personally, you know what I'm saying? But deep down, I mean, it's just like, we as a Black community, we want people in certain spaces like that who are going to change that narrative, not continue to talk about our Black athletes or Black men in
Right,
that light. You know what I'm
right.
saying? So it's like, it does start at the top, as you always say. It starts at the top and then, it trickles down. But I mean, yeah, she's dating outside of her race. She's in the sports media. So for her, is it something that the Black community is like, why doesn't she date a Black dude? It's not. I don't think it's like that. I really don't, because she chose to marry a white dude, right? To be engaged to a white dude, right? That's fine. But because of her track record of talking down on Black men, now it's like, well, sis, you kind of lost your Black card already. Some people in the community are not cool with how she does her her commentary. You know what I'm saying? And it goes to show you that race is just still a big thing when it comes to dating outside of our culture. There are other cultures across the world who also feel the same way. They want their children or their athletes to stay within the culture. They want them to date their own kind. And that's not just like just the American Black community. That's some African communities, and not everybody in Africa is black. Some are white. So, the culture applies there too. You know what I'm saying? It's just unfortunate that we've seen professional athletes in the NBA and in the NFL speak on this topic in a way where they're not trying to be with a black woman in that light. You know what I'm saying? It's better if I have a Latino woman or just a foreign woman who's not black on their arm. But then we have people like LeBron, right? He encourages black love. You know what I'm saying? We see that. We see Gabby and Dwayne, they encourage black love. See Kendrick Perkins and his wife, they encourage black love. There are a lot of athletes who are for black love. And, those athletes, they're embraced a little bit different in the black community as opposed to somebody who does not.
Yeah.
And that's just what it is. But that's not something that's just going to change like that because it's always up to that athlete. You know what I'm saying? I just think that a lot of this stems from in their collegiate careers, with athletes. It starts there because in college you're experimenting,
Right.
you're dating, you're trying to, some guys are trying to like get as many women as they can. They gotta, keep that number high. You know what I'm saying? And some not even starts in high school, but college is like, that's where we see a lot of that interracial stuff happening. And you mainly see it at PWIs. I'm sorry, I just don't see it at HBCUs like that.
No. You're not going to.
Well, I do know that like with HBCUs, they're always welcoming, other nationalities. You know what I'm saying? They will welcome a white person with open arms, to come and be a student there or an athlete,
Yeah.
But I think it could be overwhelming at times to be in that type of position because that's another culture that you have to get used to. You know what I'm saying? And you're used to your culture. So it could just be like cultural differences when it comes to dating outside of the race too, because some people feel like they're being forced to be with a black woman when they don't want to be. And I think that some black athletes, if they're like the first millionaire in the family or the first one to make it in the NFL or in the NBA, I think that it comes with pressure about, who you're going to marry, who you're going to choose. Because, your mama wants you to date or marry a black woman. You know what I'm saying? So it's just something that it's always a sensitive topic. And, like when we saw Tiger Woods, okay, he married a white woman. Okay, one thing. But then the divorce, right? From all the cheating, all of his mistresses were white too. Okay, so what can we say? That's Tiger Woods. But has his black card been revoked? I don't think so. What do you think at this point?
No, I don't think honestly it would be revoked. Because I think that there's certain exceptions that black people make when it comes to interracial dating, interracial relationships.
Yeah.
And his doesn't apply for one, in my opinion, for his card to be revoked. Now, I also think that with him being a golfer, that also plays a part, being that he's black in a predominantly white space. And I think that kind of gives him a little leverage in the same way as maybe dating outside your race at a PWI is compared to dating outside your race at a HBCU.
Right.
Because, again, when Byron, who was an HBCU player, when people found out he was dating outside his race, they had to feel that. But they didn't give other football players the same type of feel that,
Yeah.
And they were dating outside. Now, honestly, I will say that, seeing the, black male athletes with the white girls, that has been something that we've seen for ages. So I think now people just legit don't care anymore.
Yeah.
You know, they're really,
Yeah.
they don't care. So maybe perhaps that could be something else too. But
yeah, like I think that when it comes to athletes choosing to date outside of their race, I think that they're not just thinking about sometimes they're creating they want to create a certain image and what they think is right. You know what I'm saying? And we can't really knock that. You know what I'm saying? But like, we know that Serena Williams, right? Her husband is white. Okay, he's white, and I think that Venus is also dating someone who's not black, and I think that the black community only feels that, you know, a black card is revoked when, like, say if, you know, Serena Williams gets asked about being attracted to white men and whatnot. Okay, she's asked that question, and her response, if her response was like, oh, I don't date black men because of this, because like, oh, they always talk about my image, or, you know, they always talk about how muscular I am, or if she were to start saying stuff like that, then it would be like, oh, she's talking down on black men. So we're not going to be accepting of her, right? Like when it comes to that, right? I think that when you're being questioned about the race that you're not dating, and then the explanation comes off as talking down on that race or belittling that race, or like, you know, discrediting that race, I think that's when it becomes like, oh no, they're not really for the culture, right? They're not really embracing their blackness. I think that's when it becomes offensive and it becomes problematic for people in the sports world to be accepting of, okay, she's in this space, she's representing us, but she's not really for us. You know, I think that's what it is.
interesting. I can definitely see that.
Yeah.
I can definitely see that. And I think that's probably how a lot of people feel.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we thank everybody for tuning in. This was a really great conversation. I mean, if you guys want to leave notes in the comments on, you know, your opinion, and always chime in and let us know your thoughts on the things that we're talking about, because we need to hear people's real, true feelings and raw feelings about these topics, because there aren't many platforms that are going into detail or in deep conversation about these things, because corporate media does not want to hear about this type of stuff, but we do, and it's important to talk about it because it's something that needs to be normalized. You know, this will help other people talk about it as well, and probably address underlying issues that you didn't even know was there. So so thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you follow Off the Field, subscribe, like this video. It's going to be on Paris's page as well. Follow, like Paris as well. We'll be doing this again next week on Monday at 5 p.m. And, you know, you can also subscribe on YouTube for updates. That way you are alerted when everything is uploaded. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Bye.